What's up, Rezlife students? It's Blake from Rezlife West, and we are continuing our series about the heroes of the Old Testament. And today we're talking about Moses. Okay, when you think of Moses, you might think of this guy. This is kind of the old school version of Moses from the movie The Ten Commandments. However, you might also think of this. This is from the Prince of Egypt movie. It's a little more modern. I loved this movie growing up. It's a classic in my eyes. Check it out sometime. But the story of Moses, it's pretty epic, and there is so much packed into his story. Open up your Bible to Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, or Deuteronomy, and you are bound to hear stories about Moses' life. And when I think of Moses, I think of a leader. When we think of characteristics of what makes a good leader, we think of someone with a clear vision, maybe someone that's authentic, maybe someone that inspires others, maybe someone that's responsible, maybe someone that's good at communicating. Now, you can read Moses' story and probably agree he was good at most of these things, but you could also say he struggled with some of these things as well. That's sometimes being part of a leader. Something, though, to remember about Moses is that he was a good leader because he listened to God, spoke to God, and did his best to trust God. I don't know if you've ever considered, especially those first two things, listening to God and speaking to God, key traits of what make a good leader, but they are. Let's consider some of the ways that Moses did this well. Hear these words from Exodus 3:7-12. Then the Lord said, "I've clearly seen my people oppressed in Egypt. I've heard their cry of injustice because of their slave masters. I know about their pain. I've come down to rescue them from the Egyptians in order to take them out of the land and bring them to a good and broad land, a land that's full of milk and honey, a place where the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites all live. Now the Israelites' cries of injustice have reached me. I've seen just how the Egyptians have oppressed them. So get going. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring the people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." But Moses said to God, "Who am I to go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" And God said, "I'll be with you. And this will show you that I'm the one who sent you. After you bring the people out of Egypt, and we'll come back here and worship God on this mountain." If you're not familiar with the Moses story, or if you need a refresher, Moses was born an Israelite, who were slaves in the land of Egypt. However, after Moses was born, he was sent to live with an Egyptian family. Long story summed up, Moses leaves his Egyptian family in this high life of living that he was used to. And he's with God on this mountain. And God speaks to him in a really unique way and says, "Bring my people, the Israelites, out of slavery." And this passage is God speaking directly to Moses. And you see Moses doing two things. He's listening and he's talking to God. Put yourself in Moses' shoes for a second. And imagine that you are being told to essentially lead a huge group of people from one country to another country. That would be a big ask. If God asked me to do that, I would be a little reluctant. I might say, "Are you sure you want me?" Moses wasn't coached on how to be a leader or given a map or trained how to handle the tough things that would come up, like needing protection or needing basic necessities like water or food. However, God chose Moses. And God gives Moses a promise after Moses says, "You want me?" God says, "I will be with you." God is telling Moses that no matter what situation pops up or no matter how inadequate Moses feels, God will be with him 100% of the way. And from that moment, Moses begins this powerful journey of leading the slaves out of Egypt. Now, there are so many stories about how Moses does the listening and talking and trusting God well, but I want us to just look at one. This passage comes from Exodus 17, 1-7. Moses has been traveling out of Egypt with the Israelites for a while, and to no surprise, the people are thirsty. And they start getting really angry at Moses. They even threaten him. So Moses goes to God and says, "What should I do with these people? They are getting ready to stone me." And the Lord said to Moses, "Go on ahead of the people and take some of the Israel's elders with you. Take in your hand the shepherd's rod that you used to strike the Nile River and go. I'll be standing there in front of you on the rock of Horeb. Hit the rock, water will come out of it, and the people will be able to drink." So Moses did so while Israel elders watched. Okay, so here we have an example of Moses not knowing what to do and asking God, "What am I supposed to do?" And then God provides a miracle by having water come out of a rock so that the people won't be thirsty anymore. Miracles like this, they happen a lot in Moses' story. And each time Moses is doing his best to listen, to talk, and to trust that God's will is going to provide. What would it look like if you tried to be a leader like Moses and focused on three things: listening to God, talking to God, and trusting God? God speaks to all of us in different ways, but sometimes we don't hear God's voice because we're not saying, "I'm listening." Students, I encourage you to tell God, "I'm listening." From there, we need to respond to God. Often this looks like prayer, and there is no perfect way to pray. There are prayers like the Lord's Prayer, and then there are prayers like Moses prayed that just say, "What should I do?" And when we're honest in talking to God, God often starts speaking to us in ways we have never experienced before. And then there's that trusting piece. Moses wasn't a great leader because he had no fear. He feared what God was doing a lot. He was a good leader because he feared God. And fearing God doesn't mean being afraid that something bad is going to happen. Fearing God means being open to anything that God is going to do. Fearing God is trusting God's will completely instead of your own. One of the ways we can be great leaders is simply by listening, talking, and trusting. It's that simple. It worked for Moses, and he was able to lead people out of slavery into a new land that was focused on God's will. The same message is true for us. So try it out this week, this month, this year, and allow yourself to be used by God in a powerful way.